Hello and welcome to the Wedding Dish Podcast. Grab your fork and knife and take a seat at our table as we dish on all things weddings. You'll hear stories and tips from real couples and wedding pros about love, life, and entrepreneurship. I am Sarah Alapin. I am the host of The Wedding Dish and the CEO of Photos from the Hardy and District Bliss. And today, my co-host, Clouseau the French Bulldog, is taking a nap in the sun. You'll probably hear him snoring at some point, per usual. I am very excited to be dishing with a really special guest today who had a totally unique wedding that really, I think, will apply to a lot of other people's experiences in ways that we maybe don't always think about. So I'd like to welcome Elise. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to dish.
I love it. I love it. So we were talking a little bit before we hopped on here, and Elise sent me the story of how she met her husband and how they got engaged. And I will be sharing those on the show notes because they are fabulous and they're super detailed and they made me laugh out loud several times. But I want to dive right in for your wedding because you did so many cool things and I want to make sure we have time to cover all of it.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. So you got married in Maine, right?
Yeah, we got married in Maine on the lake where my parents live, not at their property, but at a different property on their same lake.
Oh, that's amazing. What lake is it, out of curiosity?
It's called, I almost forgot for a second. It's called McCurdy Pond.
Okay.
I guess it's a pond.
Okay. I mean, that's an important differentiator there.
In Maine, these are important details.
My husband went to Bowdoin.
Oh, okay,
so,
yeah.
Yeah, which is in Maine, for those of you who don't know. So he and his friends go up to Moosehead Lake every year.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great spot. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Amazing. So you had a couple things that I thought were super cool. First of all, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about your guest list. You had 75 guests who were able to join you all in Maine to celebrate. How did you keep your guest list to that side? How did you decide who you were inviting? And would you make any changes in that, now that you're a few years past your wedding?
Yeah, we really wanted to have it be a very intimate experience. I had this sense that I wanted to look out at all the people there and just really feel like they were my closest, most safest kind of people in my life. My husband's family and friends, most of them live in Argentina. That's where he's from. And so he had just kind of a handful of people who could come. And then my family is not the biggest family ever, but took up, I would say, most of the guest list. And then I had, my group, my friends there as well. And it was hard because we were creeping up to 75 and I was like, oh, like that just, it was feeling very big for me. So we, kind of had to make some hard decisions. And now looking back, I think that was right for me. However, there are some people that do come to mind that I was just starting to form relationships with or had relationships in sort of different sectors of my life, like maybe more a business type relationship or something that at that point in time felt like that was really their category for lack of a better way to say that.
Yeah.
But now they have developed into more lifelong friendships. And so I do wish that I had maybe thought to expand it a little bit more. But at the same time, I knew that I didn't want to feel like I was performing, and I wanted to just feel like everyone who was there would be someone who would like be able to have my back no matter what happened, or anything. So, I do feel good about it, but there are those few people that I'm kind of like, oh, I really wish that they had been there.
Yeah, and it's so hard because you can't always predict the way that you feel later. Um, we didn't really bring anyone outside of our family to our wedding. So, um, but we didn't want to we had a micro wedding before micro weddings were cool or a thing
Necessary. Yeah.
necessary. Yeah. Air quotes cool, the thing that you do because you have to do it, or you get to do because it just happened that way. But I totally understand that, like, there were some people that I wished I could have invited, but if I opened it up, I knew it would open up to be so much bigger right away.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then there were just some space constraints as well. Like the venue that we had actually wasn't like a proper wedding venue. It was someone we just knew on the lake, on the pond, excuse me, um, who just had this amount of land in a little guest house. So it wasn't like this sort of place that's very used to having that amount of people on it. And so we had to take that into consideration as well, that like, it wasn't really set up to be this huge wedding venue.
Yeah, that makes a really big difference because there are considerations there like bathrooms. And, once as you expand out, um, and as it gets to be later in the evening, then people have to, you end up with lines at the bathroom. And that can be a really, I've been to some smaller venues where that's been problematic for me as a photographer because I get a very small window of time where I get to like go use the restroom.
Yes.
And and I would imagine if you just don't realize there would be a line that other people that are guests would run into that too. But there are a lot of just like pieces that go into having an unofficial venue spot or not something that is used to handling that volume of people, where you can bump into, as a person who's getting married, it's not like you're doing this over and over and over again like you purchase on Amazon. You're not used to having to problem solve all the things because you haven't done it 100 times.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like every single thing is the first time. And you saying that about the bathrooms actually makes me remember a story that I hadn't mentioned to you before, that I think we did get two outhouses, because there wasn't a bathroom. And I apologize because I don't remember the full story. My mom would be able to tell me. But one of them, because I think they kind of like didn't want me to be concerned
Know what
about
was going on. Yeah.
yeah. But I'm pretty sure that one of the outhouses, like there, like something happened, and it was, I'm not sure exactly what it was, but like something went down with one of the outhouses. So it was like, then it was just one for everybody. So exactly to what you're saying, it's like, it just wasn't set up for that
Yeah,
many
that
people.
makes total sense. And I'm guessing it was a pretty rural location as well.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, so let's jump backward a little bit. You had 6 months to do all of your planning,
Yes.
which is a very bold choice. I would love to hear about how your experience was with that. And if there's anything you would have changed about that, if you would have changed the amount of time you gave yourselves to plan, or if it felt like the right fit for you all.
It felt like the right fit. I just have no other reason than I just didn't want to be planning a wedding forever, for what felt like forever. And we didn't have any reason that we needed to get married at that particular time, like for us as a couple, other than we were just trying to get my husband's family to be able to come here. I'm pretty sure that was actually the first flight out of Argentina that his parents had ever been on.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
yeah, I don't believe that they had left the country before. So it was more like finding the right time for that to happen. And then also, we weren't set on Maine right away. We were thinking perhaps we would have some sort of destination halfway point um, wedding. But then when we really like looked into that a little bit, we realized that it would kind of be like just as much like since they were, there were I think 10 people coming from Argentina, and compared to like the 65 people who live somewhere in the States, and there were also people from a couple other countries that came, but just from one here and one there, um, and so we just realized like it wouldn't have made that big of a difference to like have a destination wedding where we would meet them halfway and then everybody else would also have to travel very far. So we just decided to go the Maine route. And then I think when we did that, we were just like summer, because summer makes sense in Maine. And then we were just like, we knew we didn't want to do it in a year and a half. That would have felt like way too long for planning for me. And so we were just like, okay, this summer, let's go. And I do have to give major shout out to my mom because, we were living in Brooklyn, New York at the time, and she was living in Maine. And so, we just had such a help in that. I think I would have been so much more overwhelmed. And maybe the 6 months would have felt too short if I was truly doing it on my own. But, she was like meeting vendors, figuring out venues and stuff like that. So that, I think that was probably the reason why the 6 months felt fine.
That's awesome. That's so nice that she was like willing to do that, it sounds like she was excited to do it.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really sweet. I'm so glad that you had that support system. That's really important in planning. Some people are not that lucky, so I'm super glad you were.
Yeah, I think I would have been completely overwhelmed otherwise, I think, because even now, just thinking about like making a huge party like that, even if it doesn't have the title of wedding, it's a really big job and responsibility. Like there's so much decision making. And I think I did get to a point where it was just like, I felt like the decisions were flying in, and it was almost a moment of growth, I think, because I just had to like look at that decision and be like, boom, like, yes, no, maybe we'll talk about it next week. Like, do, just like, because there's just so much.
Yeah. Yeah, there is. And again, it is not something you're doing on a regular basis. It's not like what you do for work where you're just, okay, I open my email, I do this in the morning, and then I like do this and this and this. And these are, then I make a spreadsheet or whatever. Like,
yeah.
It's like making a spreadsheet, but never having made a spreadsheet before.
And working 2 jobs at once, because most likely you're still doing your normal life. And then you have that whole thing, which is like a full-time job on top of what you're already doing. So yeah, it's like a lot.
Yeah, I actually have seen a lot. And there are a lot of people that go into wedding planning after they do their wedding because they have all that found time and they're like, well, I loved doing my wedding. So now like maybe I'll make it a career. And, some of them stick and stay and some of them end up doing it for a short period of time and then moving on. But you make time from nowhere to do it. It's really interesting how you're able to kind of pull that out. And then afterward, you just have all this extra time that you fill with wine and celebration.
Yes.
And coffee with friends.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about your dress. Um, so finding your dress, you mentioned, was kind of a challenging process. Um, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it was challenging. It surprised me that it was challenging. I don't think I had ever really put too much thought into it whatsoever. Like I was never really the type of person that was fantasizing about a wedding or imagining what it would look like. So it was sort of like just starting from right then. And I was like, okay, just I guess you go to you look at the pictures and magazines and stuff, and then you go try stuff on. Um, and what I've found, which is not so surprising now that I'm hearing myself process it, but is like the pictures look very different on models in magazines than they do when you put them on your body and in, the bright lights of the fitting room. And I felt um, that that was really hard. I mean, I do work with people in body image and movement, and so I am coming from a place where I myself have gone through my own journey, but I'm very comfortable in my skin. I'm very confident in my body. So it wasn't necessarily like I was like judging myself or getting hard on myself, which I know can sometimes happen. But it was almost more like I felt like it was sort of like a smoke and mirrors type of a thing. Like I was just like, wait,
Totally.
this doesn't like that's not an accurate representation of what the dress is when it's on. And of course that would be different for everyone's body, but I just found that really hard. And it goes, even into like what the materials feel like and how they drape and the temperature and just the comfort of movement. I knew that I wanted to be really, really comfortable, and I wanted to like not be thinking about it all day. I just like that was the thing. I was like, I just want to get dressed and I want to be like, check, I got dressed, I look great, and then not think about it for the rest of the time. And then when I started getting into it a little bit, my only like couple requirements were not strapless and not lace. That's what I went into my searching process with. And that was like, those were the only two things. And sure enough, I ended up with a strapless lace dress.
Because of course.
because of course. But the cool thing was, I think for my unique body, and I'm sure this could be helpful for a lot of people, is I ended up finding a place in LA, which is where my sister was living at the time. So we went together, which was also just really fun. And this designer had separates that so you could mix and match tops and bottoms, and then he would put it together as a dress. So it wasn't because I know that's sometimes trendy too, like actually having two separate pieces, but it was a dress, but you could just mix and match, like kind of like old school doll style. And that ended up working out because then I could, really, and he also, so I have a pretty short torso. And so then he, uh, just made it on me basically. So that was really helpful. And I did like it towards love it. I wouldn't say I'm crazy about it, but at the same time, it was like, I got it, it fit, it served the purpose of like me not thinking about it throughout the day, which is great. I felt good in it. And like, I just kind of have to be like, that's enough. And then another cool thing is a friend of mine told me about a place in New York. I'll have to find the name for you after, that you can donate your dress. So it's like both sort of like a used dress shop, but then also they donate all the money to schools in need or something like that. I'll have to look at the details for you. But so that in the end, I just let it go. Like I did not feel like I needed to hold on to it. So I let it go, and then that felt great.
That,
So
that's an important piece. All of these things are important pieces, but it is nice when you are giving something up that you spent so much time, energy finding and getting and money, that at least it's going to a good cause in the end. That makes a huge difference. To go back to what you were saying about dresses not looking the same, even if, and this is true across whatever the model's body size or type is, it is not going to look the same in those bright lights that are high contrast. Your eyes are always going to look dark underneath in those lights. Unfortunately, if you have roots, they will be brought out as much as possible in those lights, because it's the way that the coloring is in the, and that's not the way you're going to look on your wedding, but the dressing room specifically is really hard to, when you go from the expectation of, this is a model who has a similar body shape to me, whatever that shape may be. I love this dress. I'm going to go try it on, and then putting it on and thinking like, holy cow, I look awful. Because you're just not expecting the way the lights bring out some different things. And they're wearing like a specific shapewear under there that is meant for that dress. So whatever their size is, there's a plan that went into dressing this person from, underwear all the way out. So, that's another important piece to kind of keep in mind. Even if you have shapewear on, it still might not be the right shapewear for that specific dress. So as you go into it, try to give yourself a little bit of grace in knowing, like, one, that's not the way you're going to look on your wedding day. It's maybe the worst you'll ever look in that dress is in the dressing room. But the knowing that you have options to either go to another store, choose a different method, or to, like change what's underneath. And also, another little tidbit, most of them are see-through if you don't have the right shapewear on. So
there you go. Yes.
wear underwear that is. I think I wore like an old crappy pair of underwear, and then all I could do was think about how everyone was seeing and I'm sure no one could tell that it was, in my mind, old and crappy. It's not like it was like had a giant hole somewhere everyone could see. I'm sure it was fine, but I remember feeling like, oh my God, I can't believe I wore like dark underwear.
And everyone's just like analyzing.
Yeah, like anyone's actually looking at me other than myself. Let's be real here.
But it matters like how you feel about yourself.
Yeah. And that's a big piece. I mean, even like you might get cups put in and not wear a bra. Like, so even if you take your strapless bra or whatever you think might be what you're wearing under the dress, it may not end up being what you're wearing under the dress.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a super fast break on the wedding dish, and then we're going to bring Elise back in to talk a little bit about her actual wedding day. So we will be right back. And we are back on the wedding dish. I am your hostess with the mostest, Sarah Alapin, and I have with me today Elise, who is sharing all kinds of great information that I am just loving that you are, sharing with our listeners.
This is so fun.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for being here. It's been such a fun conversation already. And now we're going to get down into like the real wedding day. So buckle up.
All right, here we go.
So You mentioned your husband is from Argentina, and his family is from Argentina. So I know one of the things that was important for you was that making sure that everyone could not only understand but feel included in the day. So his family, I'm making an assumption here, speaks Spanish.
Yes.
And your officiant got spoke in Spanish as well, correct?
Yeah, so we really wanted to have a bilingual ceremony. We wanted to do everything in both languages as much as possible, just because it can feel really isolating if everyone's speaking a language that you're not comfortable with or you don't understand, and even if you're there and everybody loves you, of course, it can still just be like I've had that experience when I've been in other countries that you sort of just like go into your own world. And so I really wanted everyone to feel like they understood everything. Yeah. So we had, one of our best friends was the officiant, and we had the whole ceremony laid out. So basically, he just said like about a paragraph in English and then repeated it in Spanish. So it ended up being, probably kind of a longer ceremony, but it was really important to us to do that. And we also included our parents in the ceremony, and not necessarily in the vows, but they did sort of have a part, and they spoke as well. And I cannot take credit for that idea. I had gone to another one of my best friend's wedding a couple weeks before that, and she had done that in her wedding, and I was like, oh, that's it. So I just was like, can I steal that idea? And so we put that in. So they kind of each had a time when they stood up, and they also repeated, the officiant led them through repeating just kind of like how they had been the people to raise us, and, how they had taken care of us and nurtured us, and now sort of asking them for, their, uh, I want to say blessing, but that's not really the word I'm looking for. They're kind of like participation in this next phase of our families coming together. And this was the first time that our parents and our siblings met each other. Not exactly on the wedding day, but the wedding period, like when they arrived before that. So, it was extra important to make it feel like, that was really the reason, that was one of the main reasons that we decided to get married. It's like we talked about it a lot before getting married, because it wasn't something that either of us were like 100% sure on. And so it wasn't necessarily like something that we had to do. But when we discussed it a lot, merging our families was the main thing that kept on coming up. So that was really important. So we also just had these fans that we made because it was July in the summer, and the ceremony was outside, and it had some phrases on it, just like kind of just some introduction phrases that were translated in both English and Spanish, so that people could have sort of like a conversation starter, or even if that was the extent of it, just a little exchange. So again, like people wouldn't feel like they were just only there by themselves or with the people that they knew. And we also did we did the Habanagila for my side of the family, and then we also did a traditional Argentine folk dance that is sometimes done at weddings for that side, to incorporate both of those things. So we tried to just, take little bits to make everybody feel included. And then one more thing I'd say about that is the prep time leading up to the wedding was really special because my parents lived so close to where we were, the location of where we were getting married. We could just go over there, and actually my husband and I were staying in the guest house that was on that property, so we kind of had access to it for the week before. And it was just really special. Like my father-in-law was like, painting signs, and, my mother-in-law was like helping me with stuff, and my brother-in-law was like setting out the chairs, and like we were all kind of doing it together, and we sort of had these dance rehearsals of practicing the dances because each one was new to the other side. So we wanted people to be prepared about that. And that was, some of just the best memories because there's a language barrier. B, not everyone's comfortable dancing anyway, usually. And so we were practicing and we would just be like hysterically laughing at all the misunderstandings and all of that stuff that would come up. So, yeah, those are the things that I can think of right now.
I love that you made it into like a fun activity that you all could do together. So you didn't make it into like something where it's like, okay, we need to practice, like doot, 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 doot. It was like laughter and light and fun. It would have been easy to make it a stressful time. But it was, you made it a time full of laughter.
That's what I remember. I'm sure I came to it with a little stressful energy, just to be completely honest. I'm sure I did, although that's not what sticks in my memory. So that's probably a good sign. I know I was like nervous for all of the above for the families meeting, because that's usually, something that happens well before that. So, there was like that element of it, of the nervousness, and then, and then everything else. So, but you're right. I do remember just laughing and our parents trying to have conversations, and like they had conversations where one person was saying, like telling this whole story, and the other one was like totally on a different like wavelength, but at the same time, they were communicating and they actually were connecting. And so it was, yeah, really lighthearted and fun, and great to see that come together.
That's really special. That's really special.
Yeah. And I think I might be going ahead, but I think something that was special was that we also had a little bit of time after in the spot, in the location. So it did kind of feel like this long like time, and we had some time invested into the experience of the whole thing. So rather than it just being like one wedding day, it felt a little bit expanded.
That's really cool. And I mean, especially because his family was coming in from outside the country, then taking that additional time to spend with them, like I'm sure that was a huge deal for them. If they had never been on a flight, out of the country, then going up to Maine that's also a hike.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
That's a long flight. Like you're spanning, to the very top of the United States from really far down in South America.
Yeah. Yes. It was really, really special. They did that. His brother did that. Some of his friends did that. So it was, and like, by the way, this was in 2016. So long before any COVID conversations, but it was really, really special to have everyone, make that effort. And like I said earlier, there were also some friends and family members that came from really far too. So the whole thing did feel to us very, very unique and special.
That's amazing. So I know you put a lot of effort into your vows and that they were really important, like the most important, I would say, part of your wedding, it sounds like, from what you were telling me. So let's talk a little bit about your vows and what you incorporated into them.
So yeah, I felt like at the time, why would I get married if I'm not like actually committing to something? Like I need to know exactly what I'm committing to is how I felt. Like I just didn't want to do it, check something off my like life experience. I really needed to know why. And the wedding in particular felt like that as well. Like I was like, no, this has a purpose, this has a reason, and like I, for myself, need to know that very clearly. So that's what the vows represented to me. I took them very seriously and I like researched. I had my sister send me the outline of her wedding. Oh, she also had a bilingual wedding. So that was very helpful. So she sent me the outline of her wedding, and then I like researched all these other things. And we are not specifically religious, so it was non-denominational. And so the language that we used was very, very important for us as well, because we really wanted to have each word like have impact and meaning and be like as exactly what we mean as possible. And so I broke down into categories, like the main themes of what we wanted to commit to. A few other things that were important were we wanted to use language that didn't indicate that the only way we could get out of this commitment was death. um, like we just wanted to be really clear that um, we basically agreed that we're not saying that we're going to be married for the rest of our lives. Like, absolutely. Like, we just wanted to be very clear about that. Like, we're going to be in this as long as it's working for both of us and we want to be in this. And I have a feeling that's, probably what a lot of people think, but I just like needed to be so specific about it. I I feel like maybe looking back now, I mean, maybe it was like a fear of commitment or something. But that just, yeah, really was a through line throughout the whole process. So like another example is we wanted to say I choose you instead of I do. Um, and so we had a lot of those little things that were like, we were like, no, this doesn't feel quite right. So we're just going to change it a little bit. And going back to the vows, so I had a couple different categories of things that were important for us to commit to. And I also wanted them to be things that we could commit to each other, even if we were no longer married. Um, so we ended up having this beautiful book that we wrote it all out in. And the officiant had this, and it's all written out in both English and Spanish. And so, like, I, for example, would say a vow in either English or Spanish and then hand the book to my husband, and he would repeat that vow in the other language back to me. And then he said the next vow, like, I'm not sure if I'm explaining this well, but we were flip-flopping languages.
You alternated languages.
We alternated languages, yeah. So we each got a chance to say the vow to each other in the opposite language. And then, so it was sort of like, it felt like this whole choreographed thing. But it also, in that way, it felt very ceremonial, and it felt very like it had the intention that felt right to me. I didn't want it to just be flippant. Like, I wanted to take that part really seriously. And yeah, I mean, it's like that's my favorite part.
I really love that. I really love that. And I like that you didn't just go with the language that you grew up speaking. You alternated who spoke which language.
Yes, and it's really funny. I know listeners can't see this, but I'm showing you the book, and it's funny. I was looking back in this before we got on, and I phonetically wrote out my Spanish because my Spanish is not up to par. And I don't know, just little details about that looking back are just feel really sweet. And like, and even our officiant, our friend, also did the same thing. He, under the lines that I had written, he wrote out like some phonetic words so that he would, have the pronunciation. And doesn't seem like a big deal, but I don't know, looking back on that, it just feels really heartwarming and sweet.
Well, it meant a lot. It was an important detail for you two and for the three of you, including your officiant.
Yeah.
and wanting it to be a reflection of you all as a couple and moving forward and the commitment that you were making to one another.
Yeah. Yeah. And it really felt that way. And I think kind of anything that happened outside of that, I was okay with, because that was the most meaningful thing about it to me. That and having, all the people.
Yeah. I love that. That's amazing. It sounds like you had such an incredible wedding day, and it sounds like it was really meaningful. And since I vaguely heard your husband making a snack for himself and helping you with your audio, it seems like you two are very happy and still have that lighthearted, warm relationship.
Yeah, we do. We do. We unofficially uh told each other that we were committing to 5 years of marriage. We're obviously silly like this. I mean, there's no legality involved in that, but that's what we told each other, and that's where we are right now. We're at 5 years, and you're right. I mean, you could see that, and we do just still feel, lighthearted and really enjoying, our relationship and our life together. So, we're going to do another 5, and then and then
Reevaluate every 5.
reevaluate. Yeah.
We just hit 9 yesterday in my house. So
Oh, congratulations.
thank you. Thank you. We've been together for 14, 9 married.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
I'll let you know next year when we reevaluate at 10.
Reevaluate at 10 and 15.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this today. Where can people find you online? I know you're a movement and body coach.
Yes. So people can find me just at my name, which is Elise Sparks. And it's a little tricky because there's a silent E at the end of the Sparks. So it's ELYSESPARKES. So basically, .com for the website. And then also my social media, I'm mostly on Instagram and a little bit of Facebook, are also under my name. So they can find me there.
Awesome. And I highly recommend you do, because she is just delightful.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast. Really, really fun.
It truly has. And thank you so much for being here. And thank you all, everyone who tuned in today on The Wedding Dish. We are so glad that Elise was able to join us. She shared so much great information. I'm really excited for this episode to go out to the airwaves so that everyone can learn from all the cool things that you did. And if you are interested in checking us out on social media, we are at The Wedding Dish. We're at The Wedding Dish Podcast, and that is our website as well, theweddingdishpodcast.com. You can grab show notes where you'll get to read Elise's story of how she met her husband and the proposal, plus a few other funny details. Spoiler alert, dudism is involved. And we are committed to accessibility, so we will have the transcripts there as well. You can apply to be a guest or send us juicy wedding tips and all kinds of stuff like that. So thank you all again for tuning into The Wedding Dish. Elise, thank you so much for being here. And until next time, cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Thanks, Sarah.
I've done.
Never happened. I've done over 100 proposals. I think this year I've been averaging 5 or 6 a month, which is a lot. But yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah, it definitely is. I just completely lost my train of thought. Anyway, you can continue with your questioning.
So, okay, let's assume you know whether or not it works for you as a couple to have a photographer. How do you choose the right photographer for you? What are some of the key points when you're looking at someone's portfolio or communicating with them?
I mean, in terms of picking a photographer, it's just like picking a photographer for anything else. You have to, like their style, which is, I mean, I won't say it's probably like, it's not most important. It's probably half as important. I mean, there's important parts of choosing a photographer. One is their personality. Two is the style. If you like their style but hate their personality, you're not going to have a good time.
Yeah.
If you love their personality and they're a horrible photographer, you're not going to have a good time. So you have to
Or
look.
you'll regret it later.
Yes,
when you see
exactly.
the photos.
Yes. So, I mean, it's just like choosing a photographer for a wedding. You want to like their style. And you want to you want to know that you'll be comfortable with them. And you want to know you'll be comfortable with having them at such an important moment, such a, pivotal moment of their relationship. You don't just want some dude or chick, just kind of there, if you don't know how they work and how they think about the proposal. Let's see.
And in terms of like communication and things,
Mhm.
like you've been going through, I send them a map, I send them
Yeah.
like this and that and all those things, how what would be some things that would help people determine whether or not they need that level of expertise versus somebody who's just going to show up and shoot?
Um, well, in my opinion, you need that level. Everyone needs that level of expertise, whether or not they know it.
I
Um,
agree.
you, if you're proposing to someone, you don't want to leave anything up to chance. And if you're gonna hire a photographer for a couple $100, and you want to be sure that they're going to capture it, you obviously are at the point where at some level a friend's not going to do the capturing effectively, so you're hiring a photographer. So make sure you hire a photographer who knows what they're doing and who has a deep knowledge of the process. I mean, because like I said,
Yeah.
I've done 100 of these things. I add to my process pretty much every time I do a shoot. Something I think of something new, and I add it to my my how-to guide that I send to all my clients on the process of the logistics of doing the proposal. Um, for example, recently, um, I had two couples recently who I shot the proposal, but the person they were proposing to was not looking towards the camera, so I didn't capture their facial reactions, and the person proposing was displeased that I did not capture their facial reactions, um, which is understandable, but at the same time, that's completely out of my control for many reasons. I can't just like yell, "Hey, turn around, face me." Um, so now, as part of my process, I draw on my diagrams. I clearly indicate lines of sight, and I tell them, okay, you need to make sure that her or his back is to the monument, and your back is to me. You need to have that happen. Otherwise, I cannot guarantee I will get their facial expression, which is important. And I make it abundantly clear that that's the only way to ensure that I get the facial reaction. And I even put that in my contract and bolded it just because I want to make it super abundantly clear. This must be one of your highest considerations if you care about capturing their facial expression, which most people do.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like there's so many things that are out of control. If the fate, you can't jump in the water,
Yeah.
and
I mean, I
y-
understand it's a very stressful moment, and I probably wouldn't be able to remember anything someone told me in that moment. Um, but if there's one thing I try to stress to people is that to remember in that stressful situation is just make sure they're facing me or at least sideways to me, as long as their back's not to me.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and another consideration in that is that oftentimes your photographer is using a telephoto lens
Hmm.
because they don't want to be part of your moment. They want to
Yeah.
capture your moment, and you don't want them up in your space. So for them to then run to another location, they can miss that whole moment
Yeah.
because it is a larger arc.
Oh yeah,
So
definitely. If you're on your knee for 10 seconds, there's absolutely no way I could get to another spot, um, which would capture the other person's reaction to the
yeah,
proposal.
yeah. Yeah, I totally am with you.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I was upset that I didn't capture their facial expression, and like I said, it's understandable in those two situations that they weren't entirely pleased that I didn't capture the facial expression. But it's a proposal. I make it abundantly clear that everything is not everything's up to chance, but there's a good portion of the logistical planning that stresses that even though there's logistical planning, a lot of this is left up to chance, and we have to just sort of accept that.
Yeah, there are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of variables. And that's one of the reasons that you hire somebody that I would encourage everyone listening to hire somebody who has that level of expertise and that thorough, who is that thorough so that the moment goes as smoothly as possible. So you don't have to think about it when it's happening. You already are on autopilot knowing what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, moving parts and variables is a way better way of saying it than how I said it. So I'm glad that you said that.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here and joining me on the Wedding Dish today. How can people find you online?
They can check out my website at chrisferenzi.com. For the spelling, just look in the show notes because it's hard to spell. People always misspell it, and if I spell it out loud, you'll mistake the N for an M or the Z for a C. So just look at the show notes, or you can go to my Instagram at Chris Delta, just Chris and then DELTA. It has nothing to do with the Delta variant.
I thought of that the other day.
I've had that name, that screen name, since like 1996, and it's based off Star Trek Voyager because of course it is, because they were in the Delta Quadrant of
Yep.
the galaxy, so hence Chris Delta. But now it's sort of taken on a new meaning, which is unfortunate. But
I know.
I'm just gonna hope it I can weather the storm with my screen name, which is one of the most important things, right?
Oh, yes, of course. That is of utmost
Yeah.
importance. Yes, and I would definitely check Chris's Instagram out, check out his website. He is a super talented photographer. He's one of my favorite people to work with. He's also one of the people that I love receiving his preview photos that he sends me because we share, we're friends. So we share some of our favorite photos from different things that we do. And I just love it because it's always something different and cool and really unique. And it's very inspiring.
Well, that's
He's
so
like,
nice of
I
you.
didn't expect that.
I like being inspiring.
I really shocked you on that, didn't I?
You did.
I kind of wish you all could see his face. He was a little bit like I hit him with a sock with a tennis ball in it or something.
Yeah, I've never thought of myself as inspiring, but I'll take it.
Well, you gotta, because I said it.
There we go.
Well, Chris, thank you so much for being here. It's always such a pleasure to have you. And I appreciate all of you tuning into the Wedding Dish today. And if you would like to give us a follow on Instagram, you'll see some of Chris's awesome photos on there at the Wedding Dish Podcast. And you can visit our website, theweddingdishpodcast.com, to read our show notes, apply to be a guest on the show. You can donate so that we can keep bringing you juicy wedding tips and tricks from couples and wedding pros alike. And you can get the transcripts from this episode because we are committed to accessibility. And don't forget to tune in next week. We have another amazing wedding story that we're talking about. And until then, cheers, everybody.